Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Purposeful Powerhouse podcast. And as you can see, but if you're just listening, you can't. I have a special guest with me today, my friend Meredith, yes, that's so cute. I have had the pleasure of interviewing several times, but this is her first time on the podcast. So we're very excited to have Meredith come and share with us. And so, Meredith, people can read all about your incredible bio and all about how you are super supportive with helping really purpose driven, intentional, ambitious entrepreneurs to actually slow down a little bit so they can have deep, quality, restful sleep by quieting their racing mind. And people can read about your bio and learn more about you and what you're up to in the show notes. But we like to just jump right in and learn more about you by hearing a little bit of your story. So would you please tell us a little bit about maybe something, a season or a moment in your life that really inspired you to do the work that you do the way you do it? Please and welcome.
Hello, Megan. Welcome. Great to meet everybody. If it's the first time us interacting, virtually through the podcast or on video. My name's Meredith, and my claim to fame is I had insomnia for over 16 years of my life. And going through all of that, I didn't really think that anything was wrong with me. I knew that not sleeping was unusual because nobody else in my life had that problem. But I kind of just internalized it as something with me being broken, that it wasn't fixable. And I kind of just accepted that that was something that I would have to deal with forever. However, now that I'm on the other side of it and I've gotten rid of my insomnia, I now know that it was a symptom of me actually living in a chronic state of fight or flight, a chronic state of survival from my childhood up until my late 20s. So that is how I discovered that my sleeping problems were just a symptom of my body and my nervous system being dysregulated and out of balance. And so that's how I got into what I'm doing now, helping people make that connection, because I think it's super common, especially in our society. And if you're an entrepreneur, the hustle mentality of, we don't need to sleep, keep working, stay up late, wake up early to get it all done. And the culture of having like the 5 a.m. morning routine, which I think is all great. If that's your natural wake up time, like go for it. But it's not like a one size fits all approach. And so I also fell into that of thinking that not sleeping wasn't that big of a problem. And so that's part of the mission that I'm here now, is that actually, no, slowing down and figuring out what's actually going on with you is necessary for your long-term health and longevity. And it's also going to make you more productive and effective at everything that you do every day. So that's the short version of the story.
I love it. Yes, yes. And see why I brought her on, because it's totally aligned. So if you've listened to other episodes, we talk about the saboteurs and the patterns of self-sabotage and how they drive us to go, 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 more, do. Especially many entrepreneurs are hyperachiever saboteurs. So that's that mentality of we got to keep going. You can do it, and there is an importance to having that a visionary aspect and having the dedication and all of that. But we know there's extremes to everything, just like insomnia versus oversleeping. There's a spectrum to everything, right? And so I love that you're speaking to that. And we also often talk about our nervous system and the way that it is so impactful in our state of expansion and attraction and all of that. And so we'll dive more into signs later as to how we can recognize that dysregulation. But let's just talk about that like initial step into sleep. I don't know about you, and for those of you listening or watching, can you relate to this? And I'd love to know maybe from your perspective why this happens, Meredith, is that literally you go to lay down and you're like, I'm so tired. I'm going to go to sleep now. And you lay down and you get all comfy. And I don't know about you, I have like a whole sleeping costume. I got a mask and I'm like, I've even taped my mouth. I don't do that regularly, but that's something we could talk about. But you lay down and You just, you're ready. You feel like you're just about to drift off to sleep. And then all of a sudden, inside your mind, it's like a herd of monkeys that have drank a bunch of Pepsi and they're crazy and they're just like, ding, 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 and everything's all over the place. Tell me from your perspective why that happens, please.
Yeah, no. And I love the monkeys on Pepsi analogy. That is what it feels like sometimes. And that's exactly what I dealt with for so long. And so the really simple answer is that for most people, by the time they get into bed at night and close their eyes, that's usually the first chance that they've given their mind a break all day long. And so, because of just the amount of stuff that you have going on in your life and the information that you're consuming for hours, your brain needs time to actually process through all of that information. And so, that's what it's doing when those thoughts come up. So, that's what is super common for a lot of people. Another side of that is when your mind is giving you thoughts, it's usually because it wants you to take action to go do something. And it can be misinterpreting thoughts about the future as something that you need to take action on right now, or thoughts about the past that already happened that we can't actually take any action on because it's over. And so it's a way that your mind is trying to process out emotions related to past or future experiences that you might be thinking about as well. So there's kind of like different layers to this, but the main thing is that if you don't give yourself a pause during the day, when you get into bed at night, that's probably what's been happening. And I know, Megan, you're all about the pause and the power of the pause, right? So that ties in.
It does. I was like, wow, this is perfect. Thanks for setting that up so nicely. Yes. So yeah, absolutely. And is so important, right? Because I love the analogy of an airplane, and I'm not like any sort of astrophysicist or can explain it by any means, but I know an airplane goes really fast and there's a whole process of deceleration before it comes to the landing strip, and definitely well before it lands at the gate, right? And we are like that. And so inside the tool set that I use, Mindful Strength, is that we have these power pauses. Like you said, we pause throughout the day intentionally and reset. Like, we got to fill up the tank, right? We got to make sure that we are taken care of. But also from that perspective is to allow the mind moments to digest and slow down. And so having those interspersed, I don't know, that's a word, I think, and throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, having your evening experience so you can unwind. And that's the deceleration process, of your body and your nervous system so that you can come to a gentle landing and go to sleep. And so those are some tools to help with regulation of our system throughout the day, and then to really prime and prep you for a really deep and restful sleep. But let's talk about now how, based on the fact that we're alive and the fact that, as entrepreneurs, life can be, and often is, more, sometimes more than others, a little bit stressful, or a lot, or a whole hell of a lot stressful. And so let's talk about how many people, and both of us have experienced this, a chronic state of fight or flight or stress. Many people are living at a low level or a high level of stress throughout their day, throughout their lives. So can you tell us maybe some signs and symptoms of being in that super stress or survival state?
Yeah, and this is something that I've been really getting excited about talking about, because I think that so many of us are living in survival mode, but we're not taking it seriously because the signs are subtle and they've almost been normalized by our modern society as just like the way that things are. So some subtle signs, I mean, one that it cracks me up because a lot of my friends from growing up do this, is they will just pack their weekends. Like packed schedule, like wake up, farmer's market, yoga class, Pilates class, dinner date, it's just like all of these things. And so it's like, do you feel the need to just keep going, 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 going? Because that is a state that your nervous system is just constantly activated. And to me, that can also indicate that you have a hard time relaxing and calming down. And so for some people, sitting still can become uncomfortable. And so if you're the type of person who goes to sit down on the couch to relax, but then you like think of something instantly that you need to do and you get up and you go do it, that's a sign, right? That's a sign that you're in this heightened active state. And your body doesn't feel safe to be calm. And we need to feel safe in a calm and relaxed state, because that's when our body heals and regenerates. And that's how we fall asleep at night. We have to be able to calm down and get into that deeply rest state so that we can get all of the benefits of sleep. So that's just one of the most subtle signs. But of course, if you are constantly experiencing anxiety during your day, a lot of stress, if everything feels really, really important, really, really serious, I would ask you to question that, because it's probably not as big of a deal as you've been making it out to be. But it's just because we've gotten used to feeling like everything matters that we get stuck in this chronic cycle of just being like an Energizer bunny, forcing ourselves to be an Energizer bunny when really our battery is on zero. And then, of course, by the time, so if you aren't sleeping well, that to me is the biggest wake-up call, that your body is in a dysregulated state and that you are in survival mode. Because that's kind of the ripple effect of everything that's added up. And by the time that your sleep is impacted, that means that we got to take a look at everything else and where in your life are you experiencing something that's out of balance.
That's so interesting, right? And so that's really powerful, because it's a symptom. And so it's something that we can start to look at, right? And one of the core principles of yoga is to practice this non-judgmental awareness. And so how can we look for these little subtle signs? That's so powerful, because that really tunes us back into the present moment. And so it is helping us to learn more about ourselves, but to look at it in a curious way, right? Rather than like, something's wrong with me, I have to fix it. Because that, I don't know about you, but that was the way that I looked at myself for a long time, of like, well, this is a problem, how are we going to fix this? And so that's perceiving us as broken. But we want to go back to the fact that, as you said, your natural state is relaxation. Our natural state is wholeness and integration. And so all these different things that we can begin to tune into will help us to return to that, so that we can rest, so that we can sleep, and so that we can remember that we are all of those things. And so I think that's really potent and so beautiful, because a lot of us, we're seeking, and it's like, oh, I want to fix, I want to do this, I want to make it happen. And goals are important, but it's that always like feeling that, we're not enough exactly as we are. And we're constantly seeking and constantly striving and trying to prove it to ourselves. And so again, that's a mechanism of the saboteurs and the mind. And so I think that's definitely common for me. And one thing that struck me when you were talking about, that I learned about recently, that was a sign of dysregulation that I started to really notice myself in, is, and I forget what she called it. She said it was guilt around relaxation. And you kind of alluded to that a little bit. And I notice it where if I'm just kind of cruising and scrolling on whatever platform, and then my partner, Justin, or my friend comes out, or my sister or whatever, and then I'm just like relaxing, and then they come out and I'm like, hi, I'm ready, and I'm like, I feel like I should be ready to do something or ready to engage with them. And like, it was something wrong that I was just sitting there and chilling and relaxing. It's that constant need to be like in action, which is this drive that's so relentless that I don't think we could ever satisfy.
No, definitely not. And I think that just a really simple way to kind of take inventory of what do you have going on in your life, make a list. Like, what are you doing that you don't want to be doing? Because there usually is something that we're doing out of obligation, and that is just draining your energy. And it's okay to not want to do certain things. You don't have to do everything. And so getting really clear on what is the most important thing to you to get done and why you're doing it. Because I think as entrepreneurs, it's so easy to have shiny object syndrome and just go in a million different directions, because there's so many options for what to work on to market your business or serve your clients. There's so many different avenues to take. And so finding what actually you feel excited to do, because the energy will be drained if you're doing things that you don't enjoy. But there are so many different ways to go about growing your business that there is a way that's going to sound exciting to you. And that way, when you go take action on it, it actually gives you more energy and it's not draining. So that's the place that's something that I'm really leaning into so much lately, is just saying like a hard no to anything that doesn't feel right, because I believe that all of us have our own like signature frequency. We're all here to just be ourselves, and that means that you're unique. And so the way that something works for you is going to look different than somebody else. And so kind of accepting that and embracing that. And that was hard for me, like really hard for me, accepting like, oh yeah, I am different. I do things my way, and saying that, no, that's okay. And it's actually better, because I can't fit myself into a pattern that doesn't actually work for me. And that's a cycle that I fell into for a really long time. And finally I've like I've like broken out of it, but it's a constant process. And so it's just like the awareness and not judging yourself, but just being really curious about, oh, wow, yeah, I did that. And this didn't feel good, but I did it anyway. Okay, so why is that? How can I do that differently next time? What do I want to do? And asking yourself, those types of questions to just get clear on what you want and what you don't want. Because it sounds so simple, but once you know what you don't want, man, it's so easy to cut out so much stuff that you had on your plate.
I love all of that. And that definitely aligns. Like our coach in common, James Wedmore, always talks about how can we delegate the things. And I love the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And he talks about, staying in your zone of genius. And there is, as a solopreneur, it's challenging, or maybe this is part of that whole story, to like let everything go. I'm like, wait a second, you can delegate it out technically, Megan, but whether or not it is your zone of genius, that's an interesting thing to ponder. But what I wanted to speak to that kind of loops back to what you were talking about nervous system states is when we're in a dysregulated state or a fight or flight survival state, we tend to be really reactive because it's an urgency to everything. And so it's like, oh yeah, I can do that. And we say yes to, at least me, say yes to a lot of things. And then even just a couple minutes later or days or weeks, and you're like, oh, darn it. Which part of my personality said yes to that? Because now I am not feeling a yes on that. But it is so important to go back to another thing we spoke to in order for us to pause and get that inner guidance and tap into our inner intuition and your unique frequency, as you so beautifully said, to get that guidance that takes us being committed to being intentional about pausing. And I love the quote by Viktor Frankl that said, between the stimulus and the response, there is a pause. And in that pause is our place of power. And so in order for us to be really intentional of what we're giving our energy to and what we're saying yes to in our business, it's really important for us to take those little moments and have, whether that they are intentionally mapped into your day, which we definitely suggest, because what we schedule, we're more likely to do. But even in the moments when you're presented with an opportunity, taking that little, like, maybe it's your jam, you put your hand on your heart and you ask your inner wisdom, or you just get quiet for a second or take a deep breath. Because I know, we all like to talk, we all like to share, and, it's like, we're like, oh yeah, I can. And then we realize, maybe no. And so I think that's, again, is wanting to please, wanting to support, wanting to get in there, do the things, And so I feel like that in and of itself could be pretty exhausting. But what do you find in entrepreneurs is a common thread that you see really consistently with your community, with your clients, in those that are having these struggles with sleep deprivation, or maybe even have gotten to the state of burnout? What do you see is common between a lot of them?
The most common thing that I see is attaching your self-worth to your productivity. And this is something that I'm still getting over. I mean, I've really made so much progress with this, but I think it's so ingrained in so many of us that we don't even actually recognize that is what we've been doing accidentally on a subconscious level. So for me, I mean, with so many people, it's because that's if we want to get to like the limiting belief under why your schedule is packed and your weekends are packed and you can't sit still and relax, what's underneath that? Is it because you feel that your value is related to how many things you check off your to-do list, how many projects you complete during the week, how viral one video goes or not, when really those things have nothing to do with your worth and how valuable you are and what you can bring to this world and what you are bringing to this world. And so it just has to come back like, oh man, it's just like this self-acceptance, like, no, I am worthy regardless of if I do anything today or not. And so I do this thing now where I let myself off the hook. That's the strategy. I say I let myself off the hook. So if I'm not feeling, let's say this happened to me today, I was like, today I'm going to create new content. I was not feeling it. I had zero ideas, zero inspiration. So I let myself off the hook. I say, okay, I'm just not going to do that today because it's not flowing. I went and washed the dishes, and then I had ideas for 2 videos, and then I went and recorded them. So it's like a paradox where it's the pressure that we put on ourselves that actually can sometimes hinder our creative energy. And once we just like free that up, all of a sudden, all of the ideas come to us, and you end up actually doing exactly what you had the intention to do that day. So that's that.
I love that. And it's the difference between it being forced and in flow. And so when we're in that, that need, that desire, that push energy, we're active in a different state of our brain, and we're in stress. Like, we're encouraging stress when we're there. But you took a power pause and went and washed the dishes, and you shifted the state of your brain and therefore your nervous system. And you allowed yourself to open back up. Your creative center, your prefrontal cortex was open and receptive. And then lo and behold, awesome ideas come in, and you're like, oh, yay, okay, let's go, right? And so it's so interesting because we're taught that it has to happen now. I have this idea and we gotta go, and so it's very outdated. I'm just going to say it, it's outdated. And I think it's so important for us to nurture that. And so what you said there was so beautiful, because it is that return to wholeness and that acceptance of who we are and that deservedness that's innate within each and every one of us. But yet the stories of the saboteurs in the mind are like, no, you must perform at this level to be deserving of anything. It's like, okay, says who? And so it's that desire to shift. And so you've shared so many beautiful things with us. Thank you so much. And I know that you have a tool that will support people even more. So will you tell us about the gift that you have that's available in the show notes or somewhere around here?
Absolutely. So if you are struggling with your sleep, then my free masterclass is 100% the best starting place. I walk through in detail the 3 biggest insomnia mistakes that you're accidentally making that you don't even realize it. Those saboteurs come out everywhere. And also the 3-step strategy behind my sleep success method, which is helped how I got over my own insomnia and has helped hundreds of people get rid of insomnia naturally. I mean, people who had insomnia for 3 or 4 decades, were on sleeping pills for years, had extreme sleep anxiety, and all sorts of amazing success stories have come out of that. So that's my free masterclass, which you can find the link in the show notes, like Megan said.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's incredible. Thank you so much. And congratulations. That's such a beautiful movement that you're leading, because it's so important that the sleep is such a fundamental baseline. I remember hearing a while ago, well, my sister is an ICU nurse, and in their nurse training, part of their training, I shouldn't say subjected, but I don't know the right verb here, they had to become very sleep deprived. Like, they made them stay up for days and track their function and their memory and everything. And she's like, oh my goodness, sleep deprivation is actually like a diagnosis, because it has such a crazy effect on our brain. And another thing too is, I remember hearing that even mild sleep deprivation is equivalent to a low level of alcohol intoxication because of our reactivity and everything. So just think of what's happening. Just think of what's happening in your brain. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing everything here today. And so, speaking of movements of people who care so much about how they feel, that they're living on purpose, what does it mean to you to be a purposeful powerhouse?
For me, it's doing things with intention. When you set an intention, everything magnifies and amplifies. So that is another thing that I am actively applying day to day, instead of just going from one thing to the next. No, stop, pause, set the intention and be strategic about what's the purpose, what's the end result you're looking for. Because by giving that intention to your subconscious mind, it will automatically lead you to perform that task or create that thing in the way that will fulfill that intention. So that's what it means to be a purposeful powerhouse.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. That's so beautiful. And that's so important, right? It really brings together a lot of what we're talking about being in alignment, essentially, and taking the time to really savor the little minutes. We expect that these big, massive accomplishments are going to bring us and feed us so much joy. And yes, of course, but it's, there's steps in between that. And I think it's important for us to love and start to really savor and appreciate the moments along the way, because that is really supporting nervous system regulation. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to wait till XYZ happens till I start to really allow myself to savor and experience it. It's training ourselves to do that. And it really makes everything and life really a practice, an intentional practice of taking the tools that you've been sharing, the tools that we learned from yoga and mindfulness and all the different practices that we love, to be able to really bring those into our day-to-day and make it our lifestyle that really supports healthy sleep, restorative sleep, nervous, and like so much of our healing, like you said, happens during sleep. So thank you so much, Meredith. Thank you everybody for being here. And so we would love to know what landed for you. What are you going to begin to integrate and practice? Are you going to take a little power pause? So take a screenshot of us and tag us on social, and all of Meredith's socials will be in the show notes as well. And so make sure to tag us. And just for a quick knowledge on Instagram, actually you'll be tagged in this reel, so no problem. And so tag us on there. Let us know what landed for you. And please make sure to grab Meredith's special gift that is going to be in the show notes, because I've watched the masterclass and it is really powerful. And she gives you so many things that you can start to really non-judgmentally look at yourself. Curious lens here, everybody. Silence the saboteurs and then start to implement it. And then, yes. Well, thank you, Meredith. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Stay to the end. Come DM me on Instagram. Say hello. Let me know what you think.
Awesome. Love it, love it, love it. All right, everybody. Well, on that note, thank you for continuing to think on purpose, using your mind like the powerful tool that it is. Move your body on purpose to keep it strong and healthy and energized, so that you can show up on purpose as the purposeful powerhouse that you are. Stay tuned for the next episode. It's going to be amazing. You know that. And let us know what you thought. And have a beautiful day, everybody. Take good care. Bye-bye.